Sandra Lindsay, a nurse at Long Island Jewish Medical Center, was one of the first Americans inoculated with the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19. Her vaccination was a part of a media push to encourage African Americans to vaccinate. Should African Americans take the COVID-19 vaccine? Welcome to Health Horizons, your guide to wellness. In a CBS News article, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's leading health expert, says according to the CDC, Black Americans are nearly 3 times more likely to die from the virus than their white counterparts. The CDC says, because of a long history of mistrust, studies suggest Black Americans are less likely to get vaccinated than other ethnic groups. Now, I ask myself, why are Black people less likely to vaccinate than other ethnic groups? Supposedly, this vaccine was developed by Dr. Fauci and Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, a Black scientist who leads the National Institutes of Health's vaccine research and is at the forefront of Moderna Incorporated's vaccine development. Does that give the Black community assurances that this COVID-19 vaccine is safe now that a Black person was involved in its creation? In my opinion, it does not. Most likely, you know about the notorious Tuskegee syphilis experiment. In 1932, the Public Health Service began working with the Tuskegee Institute to examine the progression of syphilis in Black men in Alabama. The Tuskegee experiment began in 1932, at a time when there was no known treatment for syphilis. After being recruited by the promise of free medical care, 600 men originally were enrolled in the project. The Associated Press revealed they went untreated and were misled about the experiment. The men were monitored by health workers, but only given placebos such as aspirin and mineral supplements, despite the fact penicillin became the recommended treatment for syphilis in 1947. The families of the men were later granted a $10 million settlement and continued health benefits, but the incident remains on the minds of the Black community. There was also a Black health practitioner who led those men into that experiment. Researchers convinced local physicians in Macon County not to treat the participants, and research was done at the Tuskegee Institute. In an NBC News article, Dr. Pierre Vigilance said many triggers of distrust are being replaced by family history, like, Uncle Johnny was fine, but he went to the doctor and everything went downhill. However, Tuskegee is only one incident of unethical medical experimentation that targeted the Black community. The history is well documented in Harriet Washington's 2006 book Medical Apartheid. You may be familiar with Dr. Sebi, a homeopathic practitioner known for curing sickness through food and diet. The medical community threatened him with civil and criminal penalties, even though he had hundreds of patients as testimony that his methods work. He was ultimately found not guilty by a jury of his peers. They later sued him and exiled him by making him settle to a civil suit. There are also ethical concerns from in and outside the Black community about the content of these vaccines. Cells derived from elective abortions have been used since the 1960s to manufacture vaccines, including current vaccines against rubella, chickenpox, hepatitis A, and shingles. They have also been used to make approved drugs against diseases including hemophilia, rheumatoid arthritis, and cystic fibrosis. This has caused an uproar and prompted the diocese to demand that an ethical vaccine be created without these substances. Even pharmaceutical companies admit that while they don't use MRC5 cells, it did use a different producer cell line to develop it, human embryonic kidney 293 TREX cells. According to the University of Oxford development team, the original human embryonic kidney 293 cells were taken from the kidney of an aborted fetus in 1973. But the cells used now are clones of the original cells. Now what I don't see being published or even promoted by any of our leading physicians is the use of natural trace elements like zinc or vitamin D. Ironically, there is correlation according to one study about the people who are susceptible to COVID-19 and the deficiencies associated with zinc. According to the individuals to infection and detrimental progression of COVID-19. It can be assumed that zinc administration is beneficial for most of the population, especially those with suboptimal zinc status. Why not give the people zinc? According to research, zinc needs a carrier to absorb itself in the body called a zinc ionophore. Zinc and the combination with zinc ionophore have been reported in basic research and several clinical investigations as a potentially viable and economical preventive and therapeutic options for COVID-19 treatment. Hydroxychloroquine, HCQ, the most studied zinc ionophore drug for COVID-19, is linked to potentially serious side effects. The man who died and woman hospitalized after drinking a fishbowl which contained hydroxychloroquine after hearing Donald Trump recommended his reason to not use this as a zinc ionophore. My research has led to me find hinokishal as a zinc ionophore, an anti-infective agent for the prevention and treatment of COVID-19 and other viral infections. In fact, a simple solution and an alternative to the COVID-19 vaccine, and what I consider a prophylactic to COVID-19 is a zinc oral spray with hinokishal from a company called Dr. Zinx, available on Amazon. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos on health and wellness.